Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video what we're going to be doing is creating snowfall animation using HTML, CSS and JavaScript. So this is actually a two-part series and this is actually the second video of the series. In the first video what we did was we actually made the bare bones website, and then this video we're going to be creating the animated snowfall effect using CSS and JavaScript. So let me actually show you what we made in the previous video. So this is the website and we basically made this from scratch in the previous video, and I would strongly recommend for you to watch this video, especially if you're a beginner in web development, because we made this from scratch. And in this video what we'll be doing is actually creating the snowfall animation and make it fall over this forest area so that it looks like it's snowing in the forest. Let me also show you a demo of what we'll be having by the end of this video. So this is the final end product that we'll have by the end of this video. So if this sounds like something you're interested in, stay tuned in because we're going to be jumping into the code right now. So let me open up my project in Visual Studio Code. So in the last video we basically created the basic bare bones HTML, and then we also added some really basic CSS styling, and we have a blank JavaScript file. So what we want to do before we start is actually get back in here, and I want to show something. So there's two types of snow falling down. If you look carefully, there's like the really tiny white dot circular snow falling down, and there's also the actual snowflake falling down. So we want to create these two things, and it's actually possible to create the small white dot falling down using pure CSS. So let's go ahead and do that. So let me get in here, and inside styles.css, the first thing to do is actually to set the wanderer image to a position of relative. So wanderer image is basically the this area, the parent container of this image area, and we want to set its position to relative so that we can position the snow and everything in it absolutely. So let's create a class called snow circle. This is for the small dot like snow falling down, and then we want to set its position to absolute, and then we want to give it a height and a width. So let's set the height to 0.3 rem, and then we also want the width to be the same, and this would essentially create a square, and to turn it into a circle we can set the border radius to 50%. The next thing we want to do is to set the background color to white so that it's actually visible and it looks white, and we also want to set the top to 0, and I believe that should create a small circle on top. I don't know why it changed to text outline, so let's just change it back to top. And if we look at it, we don't really see the circle because we don't really have a div tag called snow circle. So let's go ahead and create that snow circle, and I believe now we should be having it, and there we go. You can see like the really small snow circle at the top. And now what the idea is now is to actually make this one lonesome snow fall down, and once that can happen we can auto generate multiple of these snow elements using JavaScript, and then we can make the falling randomized and it's going to look very real. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's create the animation. So add keyframes, and let's call it snow anim, and we can set it from something and then to something else. So well, I messed around with this and I found that these properties make it look really nice. So setting the opacity to 0.3, and then we want it to go to 0.8, and that basically makes it increase its visibility as it falls down, which makes it look real. And we want to set the top to 0 and then the top to 100% so that it's actually falling down in the y-axis. And then the final thing we want to do is actually to make the snow rotate. So if I actually show you in the other page, you can see that the big snowflake is sort of rotating. So let's just create the rotation in the animation as well. So transform rotate set, and then we want it to go from 0 degrees to a 360 degrees. So transform, and let's set the rotate set to a 360 degrees. So now that we have that, that's basically all we need to create the animation. So let's just attach the animation up here under snow circle. So animation, the name is snow anim, duration, let's keep it to be maybe 20 seconds. We don't really need a timing function, we don't need a delay for now, and then let's set the iteration count to infinite. Get rid of these two things, and then let's see if it's actually falling down, and then you can see that it's falling down over here if you look really carefully because it's really small. But so now the process is to actually auto-generate this in the JavaScript file. So let's go ahead and do that. So in the JavaScript file, what we can do is actually get the parent container again. So forest image, and let's set it to document.query selector, and then let's call well, it is called wander image. So let's put that up here, and then it's the selector, and there we go. Now we have the parent image. So now let's create a for loop so that we can create multiple of these snow divs. So variable I equals 0, I less than 100. I know it's a lot, but it actually ends up looking really nice. And inside this for loop, what we want to do is create a div tag. So let snow div and equals document dot create element, and then we want to create a div, and inside this div we want to actually give it the class name of what. So let's do class list.add and give it the same class name as we have for the snow circle. So let's give it the class name. Now what we want to do is basically style it in its left position as well, and then give it its animation. So let's set the snow div dot style dot left, and I found this value to work really well. So math dot floor, and then we want math dot random, and then times 100. This basically generates a number between 0 and 100, and outside these braces we want to add percentage. So this basically creates the left position to be 0, a value between 0% to 100%. So that ends up working really well. And now what we can do is set the snow div, and we basically want to append the snow div to its parent element. So forest image dot append child, and set it to snow div. Now if we look here, we can see that it's falling down like this in a single file, and it actually doesn't look that nice. It does not look like snow at all. So to fix that, we can actually make it fall down nicely. So let's automate. So let's comment out this animation and basically automate the falling down process. So snow div dot style dot animation, and then we want to set that to backticks, and then its name is snow anim, and then we first want to set the duration, and I found this value to work really well. So math dot floor again, and then math dot random again, and so let's get the math dot random, and this time I want to times it by 10 and plus 5, and I found that this value works very well, and this is the duration. The next thing we want to do is basically add a delay so that they all fall down at like different times, and it looks less sort of fixed and more real. So I found that this value works pretty well, and then let's also set it to infinite so that it's always falling down. Now let's look at it. So now if you look at it, it is falling down nicely, but you can see that they're all lined up there waiting to fall down, and that sort of looks weird. So what we can do in the styles.css is set the opacity to 0, and that'll fix that problem for us. And there we go. Now it looks very random and it looks like it's falling down. But one more thing, if you notice carefully, is that it starts falling down really quickly, and as it goes down it starts slowing down, and that sort of looks really fake and strange. So to keep the speed like the same, we can add the property called linear to the animation, which basically has the speed to be linear. And now if you look at it, it basically looks much better, and that's how you create the animation for this area. So now what we have to do is basically create the animation for the big snowflake falling down. So it's pretty much really similar in concept to this. So I'm just going to copy and paste this for loop here. But since it's so much bigger than this small circle, let's just create 20 of those. And we need to create the div, but we also need to create an image. So let's call it like an image element. So let's call it snow image, and then let's say document.create element, and then let's call it image. So image. And now what we want to do is so we want to set the image's source. So let's do this equals, and then dot source, so src, and then dot slash images slash snowflake dot svg. And now what we want to do is basically append this snow image to snow div. So let's set the snow div dot append child and set that to snow image. So that's basically it. Now we don't want to add the same snow circle class to this because the snow circle is basically like a really small circle, and so we need to create a separate class for this thing. So let's call it snowflake, and let's set its position to absolute. And then we don't really need a height or a width until we look at it, so let's leave it as it is. Set the top to 0 and the opacity to 0. And I think that's all we need, so let's get back in here and call this snowflake. Make sure I spelled this right, as well as this snowflake, and that looks right. So now that we've added a class name to it and set a random thing, and I also found that this value looks better for this because it's so much bigger. So now I think that's everything, so let's go ahead and look in here, and if we look in here we can actually see that it's been created. So now it's the snow is all being generated randomly, and it's rotating and it's falling down, and that's basically the snowfall animation. So inside the JavaScript, I just want to point something out. This function and this for loop and that for loop look pretty similar, so you could like come up with something to like minimize this, like by like dividing the I or by like 5, and then just generating these for every 5 of this. But that's one way you could optimize the code. But other than that, this is how you create a snowfall animation using just HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So I really hope you enjoyed this video, and see you guys next time.